No, you're just so much taller than me in the chair. That's all.
Oh.
Because even how high your mic is compared to mine is ridiculous.
You got a booster over there?
Okay, 1 2 1 2 1 2.
1 2 1 2.
Check, checkity, check.
Checkity, check.
All right, we are back with another episode. Again, we know it's been a long time, probably about 8 months, but this is another episode of Lady in the Hamp. And
I'm Lady.
What's your name, Lady?
Kristen.
And of course, I'm Hamp. Hampton. So we wanted to talk a little bit. I mean, of course, happy holidays, everyone. As we record right now, it is New Year's Eve. And so we've made it through Christmas, looking forward to a new year, 2023, coming around the corner. And of course, you know, when we get to the end of the year, the beginning of the year, I think for a lot of people, it's a major time of reflection. People are looking back over the year. So people may be looking at 2022 and wondering or thinking about how their year went, thinking about whether or not they were able to accomplish everything they wanted to accomplish, looking forward to a new year and being able to maybe set goals and strive for some new things in the new year. So speaking of reflections, we wanted to not just reflect over the past year, which we're going to do a little bit of. We're going to reflect on some things, but we wanted to really kind of focus the conversation on how we have supported each other as spouses through certain things throughout the year. So let's start with some accomplishments, some major accomplishments that took place. Would you like to share?
Sure. So last time we spoke, I was in toward the end of my graduate program. I went to school for clinical mental health counseling. So I have now graduated and I am now a clinical mental health counselor. So at the end of that program, I then have to apply through the state. In order to apply through the state, I have to take a very intensive board exam. So, you know, equate it to the board of anything. So if I were to go to law school, it'd be like taking the bar. So it was a pretty serious exam. It was very intensive. And so I passed that. So now I am licensed as a graduate mental health counselor, so I can start seeing clients under supervision. So that is an accomplishment. That's something I set out to do, and I completed it.
Awesome. So, you know, those accomplishments, finishing grad school, while working full time, and then also all the different things you have to do with respect to just getting licensed was not easy. Right. And so I know it was taxing for you because I lived it with you.
It was traumatizing.
That's a strong statement. Really?
Really?
Okay. So with that being said, we want to talk about, you know, what it's like when, you know, your significant other, their time is being monopolized by something. So how do you feel? Let me ask you, and I haven't asked you this before. Mm-hmm. As you were going through your studies with your master's program and having to work full time, how do you feel how supportive I was or wasn't throughout that process?
I think you were very supportive. I mean, I think that you were supportive in that you were understanding. And I think that's really what I needed at the time. Because I could tell that I was not completely there for the family. There were days that went by that I didn't even really get to see or speak to the kids just because I was so inundated with all of the things I had to do. So just knowing that the understanding was there was huge for me. So how did you feel about me being so inundated with work and not really being available?
Um, well, it goes back to what you said. I understood. I mean, so I'm not gonna act like there were times where I wish you didn't have all that stuff to do. But I guess you also know me, like I can make myself busy. So if you're busy, if I'm not busy, I know how to make myself busy. So I think I just would occupy myself, if I wasn't able to have your attention, at a particular time anyway.
But logically you understood, but how'd you feel?
I think my bigger concern was you and your stress level and your anxiety and everything. Like, I wasn't as concerned about me as I didn't want you to be, but you were. I mean, you were very much overwhelmed at times, very stressed out at times. And so I think I was more concerned about trying to help you not be overwhelmed and stressed than I was concerned about how your busyness was impacting me.
So then on the flip side, you also have started a business, a thriving business at this point.
Right.
And so with me being inundated with work, and schoolwork, and then now you have your full-time job and you have your business, and we are like ships passing in the night at times. How do you see me showing up in support of you?
Well, I think I can say the same thing that you said for me. I feel like you understood. We talk about each other's goals, right? So both of us know, we both know what each other is trying to achieve. And so I think because you know what I'm trying to do, where I'm trying to go with respect to the business, I felt like you were understanding. I will say, even now, there are times where I'll be working on something. Maybe I'm putting hours into something, or I've got to go somewhere and do something for the business. It is a lot in the back of my head. Like, I wonder how she feels about me having to work 3 weekends in a row. Like, so, there will be times that I'll be honest, there'll be times that I feel guilty for being so busy with certain things.
Yeah. And I also felt busy when I was in school. Yeah.
So
I completely understand that feeling.
yeah, so I would feel guilty, and not just with you, even with the kids. Now, fortunately, some of the kids work with me, and so it still gives us an opportunity to spend time together. But at the same time, there are times where, finding balance, I think, is a tough thing just in life, period. Balance between working and providing and just spending quality time and, those things, just trying to, find balance. So I do sometimes wonder, like, I wonder what she thinks, because I got to go here. I got to do this. I got to stay up late. I know you don't like when I stay up late. And I know you don't like going to bed by yourself. And so, but there's some times where it's just like, I got to knock this out. I got to get this done.
Yeah, but I mean, I also have to remind you that you are not a 20-year-old college student.
Okay. Right. True.
And I had to remind myself of the same thing, and I had to make some changes. You saw I had to make changes toward the end. Unfortunately, I lost a classmate, and I think it was due to how rigorous our program was. And so I had to tell myself, if the difference between making an A or a B on this paper is I'm going to go to sleep tonight, I'm going to take the B.
I'm glad you got to that place because you ain't always been there.
I had to.
Yeah,
I had to get there. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, that's good. I definitely. So what I also will say is when I could, I tried to be very intentional about us having quality time. There, so if there was an opportunity for us to get away or do something, like I'd try to max out the opportunity. Like,
Right.
for example, we had a wedding over the summer. Obviously, the wedding was just one day, but we made a weekend of it. You know what I mean? And for me, trying to do things like that, kind of helped, just provide a little bit of a, buffer,
Quality over quantity.
yeah, relief in there. So, just trying to be intentional about still making sure we had a chance to do some things together, even though it may not be often. Just making sure we could do those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you did good.
Well, thank you.
You're doing good.
Thank you.
But I
Sir.
still got a lot to do.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So on a I think a kind of shifting gears a little bit on a little bit of a deeper level. So recently, Kristen and I had a conversation on my podcast, the Get Fat podcast. We had a guest, Dr. Isabel Ellis, who spoke with us. We had a conversation about holiday grief and depression during the holidays. And it caused me to think about just within our own relationship. So, and not to compare someone's grief to somebody else's, but you have had a significant level of loss, I would say, in your life because you have lost your mom, you have lost your dad, you lost a significant other, someone you had been dating for quite a long time, to death by suicide, which you were actually present. And then you just recently lost your grandmother. So your mother's mother. And so that's a lot. And as we were dating and even in our marriage, I am not always sure how to support you when certain birthdays or anniversaries or holidays or the anniversary of someone's death, like I'm not always sure how to support you when those things come around. I'm not always sure how much you want to talk about those people or not. There may be times where I may want to bring somebody up and I'm like, ooh, should I not? Because is that going to be a sensitive thing? You know what I mean? So it's just, for me, there's always a lot of just question. And I'll even say some level of anxiety around how to support you. So I have some questions that I wrote down, so I'm going to make sure I ask them. Okay. So what I want to ask you is, with respect to loss and grief, like what does support look like to you?
Well, part of me goes back to what my love language is, right? So, my top love language is quality time, right? And so I need presence. You don't necessarily have to be doing anything in particular, but I think that, it's a tender time. So people want to be loved and cared for in their particular love language. So I think that, the quality time says a lot. Support also looks for me particularly like grace, right? Because you start to learn yourself in different predicaments. So I know that when I am grieving, if I'm upset about something, if I'm sad, that's when I am not on my game. And so I need grace. I need somebody to say, hey, I know you ain't got it all together right now. I'm going to pick up where you can't do it right now. And I think that's where the partnership comes in.
Got you. Okay. Guess then my question is, did I do okay with? Have I done okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, you are inherently a compassionate person. Like, nobody has to teach you that. That's just who you are. So I don't expect anything less from you. Like, that's just how you go about life anyway.
Good to know. All right. So my next question was going to be, do you have any expectations? And this may be redundant. Do you have any expectations of me when it comes to grieving a loved one? And if so, what are they? But I think you can.
I expect for you to be you.
Okay. All right. How do you handle or process your emotions when certain dates and times come around?
I think it really depends on what's already happening. I took a test the first time I went through therapy. And in the test, it turned out that I am more anxious than I am depressed. So whenever I go through things, I tend to feel more anxious than I feel depressed. So in saying that, around the time where what we call a tender day. So a tender day is, like Hamp said, the anniversary of someone's passing, or a birthday, or any significant date that you would normally remember that person. On those tender days, I tend to not only get anxious on the day of, but I get anxious in the days leading up to, almost like in anticipation of the day coming. So just kind of understanding that I am anxious. It may come off in different ways. So it may be, you know what? I can't get on the road today because I'm just feeling too anxious, and you just have to have space for me when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I notice. So one of the things I've done is I put certain days, those tender days, in my calendar, in my Google Calendar. And so for me, it's a good reminder, especially if Kristen is going through the motions or emotions, whatever, what have you. And I notice on my calendar that today is a tender day, or that I notice on my calendar that a tender day is coming up. Because like she said, she'll start feeling it even before that day comes. Like, it helps. It's a good reminder for me. Oh, okay. This day's coming. Let me try to be sensitive, or just, it may click that, okay, I see why she's a little off right now, or whatever the case may be. So it's just a tip. Like, I don't know if that could help anybody else, but I actually have those days in my calendar to help remind me. So I'm, more aware. I'm not going to remember those days. I barely remember my children's birthdays. So I'm not going to remember all these different dates off the top of my head. So having them in the calendar is helpful for me, and helps me to be understanding and empathetic, when these days come around. Okay. Are there certain dates and times that are more significant for you than others? So is it birthdays that are more significant? Is it holidays that are more significant?
It's always different. I think that each year is going to be different. Each day is going to be different. It's not a matter of I handle the anniversary of someone's passing differently than I do their birthday. But I will say that, like I said, it matters what else is already happening at the moment. So if I'm already doing well, it helps. But if I'm already overwhelmed, if I'm already feeling anxious, if I'm already just feeling like I have a whole lot on my plate, then that day coming is not going to go well. So it depends on what's already happening at the time.
Gotcha. Do you have any comments or questions regarding to either this specific one we were just talking about or any other?
Oh yeah. So even though, yes, I have dealt with some significant losses, you have also dealt with some significant losses. And so I wanted to talk about even in support of you. So you lost your grandfather. You lost a cousin that was very dear that you were actually, becoming even more close to at the time. And just wanting to know if the support that you received from me was what you were looking for, or if there was anything more that I could do.
No, I think no. I think there's nothing. I can't think of anything that I wish you would have done. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything that I wish you would have done. So
Yeah. And so I also wanted to talk about something, and we may cut this out. But I recognize in this particular loss. So losing my grandmother was actually just about a month ago. It was only in November. And going through that process, I realized that my grief started way earlier than when we lost her, right?
I noticed that.
So you start grieving a person at each step or each decline, right? So it's not just when you lose the person, it's not just upon their passing, but each reminder that, hey, it looks like this person, that their time is coming, you already start grieving them. And so just looking at your situation, right? Because, your grandmother isn't doing well.
Right.
And just wondering if you've kind of already started reflecting and already started going through a grieving process.
Nope.
Because you're not.
Well, let's back up. So
Yeah.
when your grandmother started to decline, when we really realized like, oh, okay, this is not going to be long. I definitely noticed the shift in you. And again, that's one of those things too, where like when that was happening, I think for me, I didn't know. I probably didn't say as much about it as what I was thinking. Like, I wasn't sure. It's just one of those things where it's just like, I didn't necessarily know how much you wanted to talk about it or not talk about it. And so there may have been times that I may want to bring something up, but then I would suppress it because I'm like, oh, she may not want to talk about it. I think I did tell you after the fact that when she got really close to the end, I'm trying to get emotional. When she got really close to the end, and you would describe to me the things that were going on with her, I didn't want to see that. Like, I wanted to remember Nana like I always knew her. So to hear you talk about her state, like there's a part of me that wanted to go and visit, but there's another part of me that was like, I just don't want to see her like that.
Right.
Like I want to remember her like I know her, and I felt, I guess I felt guilty about that too.
Oh, you don't need to feel. Listen, the diva that she was, she probably preferred that.
Well, so it's funny because it's a significant moment that I remember when it really, before the decline really got bad. I remember her being, and I'm gonna use the word upset, but not, she wasn't like distraught or whatever. But I could tell that she felt some kind of way about me seeing her in a certain way. And I knew that was nothing against me.
But what he's saying, so my grandmother is the one that would wake up every day, do her makeup, get dressed, not going nowhere, but you never know who's going to stop by. So, yes, what he's describing is accurate because Nana never really wanted anybody to see her off, off of her game. If she went out, she had to be snazzy. She had to, have on the shades, have on the hat, have on, all her accessories and her makeup because that's just who she was. So, yeah, I can definitely see her even if she was in a state where she couldn't communicate. She wouldn't want people to see her in that way.
So that was something that while it was happening, I didn't bring it up to you. So then there was a part of me that was in my mind that was like, I wonder if she's upset with me for not going over there. Like, cause you were going over there like every day. And there were times that I wanted to be like, I'm gonna go with you. Cause one, I want to support you. Right. But on the flip side, it was like, I just couldn't bring myself to see her like that. And so I had some really inner turmoil and conflict over that. But I know I brought that up to you later. As far as my grandmother is concerned, I have not really thought about I haven't processed my own feelings about that. I think I've been much more concerned about my mother and my aunt. Like when I think about, right now, when I think about what my grandmother's going through and her passing, my mind goes to how it's going to affect my mother and how it's going to affect my aunt. So I haven't gotten to me yet. So that's where that is. Yeah.
Okay.
This is some good wine.
It is very tasty.
Yeah.
Like this is juice. And not that we're promoting because, Stella's not cutting us a check,
Right.
but this is Stella Rosa Black Cherry, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's good stuff.
Il Conte 1917. Sir. That's what it say? Il Conte. Yeah.
So yeah, I do appreciate, and anytime, I am singing my husband's praises, I'm telling people he actually has the dates on his calendar. Like the date that I lost my significant other is on his calendar. Where in past relationships, I have been discouraged from even talking about him. Hamp is so understanding in that way, knowing that I need to talk about him. It's healthy for me to talk about him. If I've finally gotten to a point where I can talk about him and not cry, not break down. So,
And I never asked this. And I know part of it was too, I would ask questions sometimes. But, and maybe because we're farther along now, was it ever weird to you or for you to talk about him to me?
No, because you didn't make it weird.
Oh, okay. Because I always wonder, like, I know sometimes you would talk about him, and then in my head, I'd be wondering, I wonder if she feels awkward talking about him. or I wonder if she thinks I feel some kind of way about her. Like I have all these things going on through my head that I never don't necessarily express.
You didn't make it weird. So
Okay.
no, I never felt weird
All right.
about it.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean that person was in your life for how long?
12 years.
12 years, right. So somebody's in your life for 12 years, and then to lose them in such a tragic and traumatizing way, like that's a huge part of your life. So I can't act like, man, you need to this is dumb. Same way I was married for 12 years. No. 12 years? 14 years. I was married for 14 years. Right. And so there are still things about that affect me and can't act like it just didn't happen. Like, when we got married, we brought our past with us.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's one of the reasons why we chose each other, because we both kind of have the same philosophy on a lot of things and understanding about a lot of things. So, yes. So it works.
That it does.
So it's interesting. Like some of the questions I asked you tonight, I've never asked before. So I'm glad they turned out. I'm glad the answers turned out to be positive, because might have been in for a surprise. But
just one thing to put in, and you can edit this into something else. But when I think about anticipation and anxiety, and right now we're going into another year and thinking about the people that we're not taking into the new year.
right.
I remember in 2012, New Year's Eve, going into 2013, I knew that my dad wasn't going to last long, right? So New Year's Eve 2012, I cried like a baby. Not because I had lost my dad, but because I knew that I was about to. And so in February 2013, my dad had passed away. And so that's what I mean when I say like the grieving process starts at the point where this person really starts to decline. And for me, I think that I get more tears out in anticipation of the loss than I do at the actual loss.
Interesting. I think, so that's an interesting point, because I think just the way I process things, I don't think it'll be that way for me. I think for me, I'm like a late reaction type person.
Yeah.
Like it'll hit me after the fact, because I don't think I allow myself to process it until it actually happens and reality hits. But hey, that's good to know, right? Like it's good to know these things about your spouse or your significant other and be able to know how they deal with their emotions and anxiety and grief and loss, so that you then know how to support them. And that's what this conversation was about. And just really thinking about, how you can support your spouse. The fact that I never associated, until you just said it tonight, I never associated your love language. Like I understand love languages, and I understand that, we kind of need to be mindful of, other people's love languages so we know how to meet their needs. I never really thought about the fact, though, that in a time of loss or grief, that is like one of the most crucial times that you need to be loved in your love language. Like I just never really associated those things. And so, that was a really good point and an interesting point as well. So all of you who have lost loved ones over this year or even before, and you're not taking them into 2023 with you, our hearts go out to you. Our prayers go out to you. And I pray that you have people in your life that are supportive. Sometimes you may have to speak up and tell somebody. I mean, I feel fortunate that we've kind of been able to, even though I know there's some things I haven't verbally said in the moment or asked until now. I'm glad that we were able to support each other in the way we have. And, you know, you may have to verbally express to somebody what you need from them. There's nothing wrong with that. And that could probably help things go smoother, to help somebody understand you better or what you may be going through. You know, but I hope that, you know, 2023 brings peace and happiness and blessings and love
Absolutely.
to everybody that is listening, and that you will have people around you that you can share the good and bad times with, people that will support you, help you achieve your goals. I'm looking forward to continuing to support you and help you achieve your goals.
Thank you, sir.
And I know you're going to, you know, support me and help me to achieve mine, and then our collective goals together that we have. So, you know, I'm looking forward to 2023 with you, babe. All right, so that's it for this episode of Lady in the Hamp. That's it for this episode of Lady in the Hamp. Until the next time, we're going to try to do this more often for real. We're really going to work on that. But we'll see y'all soon.
Bye, guys.
1917.